Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. How is everyone out there? Are you all excited for this little tiny bit of research that we've got going on here? Yes, I've been having really rather a lot of requests for me to read this particular thing, this Cogent Social Sciences journal. The title of it is indeed The Conceptual Penis as a Social Construct. Now, I had a load of requests for me to do this, like, do something about it, but I'm really not sure what exactly people expected me to do. It's like, okay, it's basically the SoCal affair all over again, but in the current year. So, what this is, it is a paper which was written by a couple of people who basically just wanted to say, look, social sciences have gone to shit, they'll take any old crap. So they put together a load of general opinion and complete nonsense, and when they got to a point where they were like, this makes absolutely no sense, they submitted it to a journal, which then published it. Yes, oh dear. The funny thing is that obviously this went through peer review, so it was peer reviewed by two people. And one of the funny things about this is that there are a few sources that this paper which these people have written, which don't exist. They're not sources which are actually thing. I don't mean like they don't exist as in they're blank, or they don't exist as in it's C drive documents whatever, like the UN accepted for some bizarre reason. But they link to things that don't exist and authors that don't exist, and hilariously, this still got the go-ahead because apparently all of the sources were completely in line and absolutely legit. It's an absolute, complete and utter failure of peer review. So we're gonna look at a couple of things before I go straight on into this. First of all, I want to look at the retraction which the journal published for this paper, so we can see where they're trying to shift the blame to. So I'll give you the screen and we'll have a look at that. An article, The Conceptual Penis as a Social Construct, published in Cogent Social Sciences on May 19th, 2017, has been revealed by its authors as a hoax. We understand the author's intention was to question the field of gender studies, and the fact it came to be published in one of our journals is disappointing and has led us to conduct a thorough investigation. Early findings indicate the article was originally submitted to Norma, the International Journal of Masculine Studies, published by our parent company Taylor and Francis. The editors of that journal considered the article was unsuitable for publication and intended to reject it outright as unsound, at which stage it should have left Taylor and Francis's submission system. Instead, upon rejection, it was inadvertently referred to Cogent Social Sciences via the electronic article transfer process in place between Taylor and Francis' social science journal program and our own. So it was inadvertent, it was an accident. This shouldn't have happened. Which of course is why Cogent Sciences has published a load of complete and utter shit beforehand. You know, because this is really frequent. You know, it's just so easy that this could happen. I find that a little bit hard to believe. The article transfer is common within journal publishing and can provide researchers with a valuable and efficient route to publication in an alternative journal. It allows an editor to recommend an article to other journal editors for consideration, where the editor believes the article is worth considering for publication but is unsuitable for the journal in which it is originally submitted. That bit is true. The article was received by a senior editor and sent out for peer review as is standard. Now, that editor read this paper and clearly thought, okay, this is worth sending out to a couple of peers to review it. I want to remind everyone of that. This editor here will have read this and said, yes, I will send this out to two peers. Then, as it says, two reviewers agreed to review the paper and it was accepted with no changes by one reviewer and with minor amends by the other. A peer reviewed this and said, "This article does not need any changes." Okay. On investigation, although the two reviewers had relevant research interests, their expertise did not fully align with this subject matter, and we do not believe that they were the right choices to review this paper. Let's shift the blame. It wasn't us, it wasn't our editor. It was the people who had agreed to be peers for our publication. They were the ones who were at fault here. It wasn't the senior editor who decided to send it off. It was their fault. Peer review depends significantly on trust between authors, academic editors, peer reviewers, and publishers, supported by appropriate systems and processes. While we continue a thorough review to ensure these are robust as possible, yes, you've got to make sure you make all of those robust arguments, we are taking 3 immediate steps. We are working closely with academic editorial teams of all our journals to review our processes and make changes where necessary to minimize the risk of such a situation happening again. We are reviewing our academic editor and peer reviewer education program to ensure editors and peer reviewers are fully equipped with the skills they need to assess whether a paper is fit for publication. That's pretty much a thing that they should have already refined throughout their academic career, but okay, sure. And finally, they are working with colleagues at Taylor and Francis to examine our peer review systems and workflow so that articles deemed unsuitable for publication cannot be transferred inadvertently to another journal's submission system. You probably should have done that already. So that's what Cogent Social Sciences had to say about this hoax paper that they published as if it had any sort of academic merit. 3 people read it and thought, yes, this is a thing that should be published. One person put in only minor amends. Minor. Not major, not this needs a sweeping overhaul because the very premise is ridiculous. No, just minor, a few minor little things. And that includes the bogus sources that the authors intentionally put into that paper. Absolutely ridiculous. So what did the authors say? I want to read a little bit of an article that the authors wrote about the paper and the publication, and then I'm going to go in and read the actual full thing, and I will explain why when I get there. So first up, let's have a little look-see at what the authors had to say. The hoax. The androcentric scientific and meta-scientific evidence that the penis is the male reproductive organ is considered overwhelming and largely uncontroversial. That's how we began. We used this preposterous sentence to open a paper consisting of 3,000 words of utter nonsense posing as academic scholarship. Then a peer-reviewed academic journal in the social sciences accepted and published it. This paper should never have been published. Titled "The Conceptual Penis as a Social Construct," our paper argues that the penis vis-a-vis maleness is an incoherent construct. We argue that the conceptual penis is better understood not as an anatomical organ, but as a gender performative, highly fluid social construct. As if to prove philosopher David Hume's claim that there is a deep gap between what is and what ought to be, our should have never been published paper was published. In the open access, meaning the articles are freely accessible and not behind paywall, peer-reviewed journal Cogent Social Sciences. Assuming the pen names Jamie Lindsay and Peter Boyle, and writing for the fictitious Southeast Independent Social Research Group, so remember, they faked a research group, so neither the editor nor either of the two peers thought to just Google that and see if this was a legit institute and find out that it wasn't. So they wrote an absurd paper loosely composed in the style of post-structuralist discursive gender theory. The paper was ridiculous by intention, essentially arguing that penises shouldn't be thought of as male genital organs, but as damaging social constructs. We made no attempt to find out what post-structuralist discursive gender theory actually means. We assumed that if we were merely clear in our moral implications that maleness is intrinsically bad and that the penis is somehow at the root of it, we could get the paper published in a respectable journal. So that they set out to write absolute and complete bullshit. And they'll go on to say a little bit more about this, and then I'll get to the actual paper. This already damning characterization of our hoax understates our paper's lack of fitness for academic publication by orders of magnitude. We didn't try to make the paper coherent. Instead, we stuffed it full of jargon, like discursive and isomorphism, nonsense, like arguing that hypermasculine men are both inside and outside of certain discourses at the same time, red flag phrases like pre-post patriarchal society, lewd references to slang terms for the penis, insulting phrases regarding men, including referring to some men who choose not to have children as being, quote, unable to coerce a mate, unquote, and allusions to rape. We stated that manspreading, a complaint levied against men for sitting with their legs spread wide, is akin to raping the empty space around him. After completing the paper, we read it carefully to ensure it didn't say anything meaningful, and as neither one of us could determine what it is actually about, we deemed it a success. So two people have just come up with complete and utter bullshit. Like, they're not even trying to understand the terms that they're using. They're just throwing all of this postmodernist, pseudo-intellectual twaddle into a paper. And they just wanted to see if it would actually get taken on. And apparently it did. I wonder if I can just quickly find what their words were about the fake citations here. Let me see if I can quickly bring that up, because this was one of the other amusing parts about this. Let's see if I can grab the relevant bit here. Because apparently, oh yes, here we go. Some references cite the Postmodern Generator, a website coded in the 1990s by Andrew Bullock featuring an algorithm based on NYU physicist Alan Sokal's method of hoaxing, a cultural studies journal called Social Text, that returns a different fake postmodernist paper every time the page is reloaded. We cited and quoted from the Postmodern Generator liberally. This includes nonsense quotations incorporated in the body of the paper and citing 5 different papers generated in the course of a few minutes. These people quoted the Postmodern Generator and downloaded papers from the Postmodern Generator and cited them as sources for this paper. And that did not get picked up on by these people. That's how ridiculous this is. That is the level of stupid. So 5 fake references to fake papers in journals that don't exist is astonishing on its own. So they got 5 past them here. But it's incredible given that the original paper we submitted had only 16 references in a total. So that's amazing. 5 out of 16 references. Basically a third. 1/3 of their references were fabricated nonsense from an internet academic paper generator. No one noticed. Anyway, it has 20 now after a reviewer asked for more examples. So nearly a third of the references in the original paper go to fake sources from a website mocking the fact that this kind of thing is brainlessly possible, particularly in academic fields corrupted by postmodernism. 2 of the fake journals cited are deconstructions from elsewhere and/or press, taken directly from algorithmically generated fictitious citations on the Postmodern Generator. Another cites the fictitious researcher S.Q. Scammeren, whose invented name appears in the body of the paper several times. In response, the reviewers noted that our references are sound even after an allegedly careful cross-referencing check done in the final round of editorial approval. No matter the effort put into it, it appears one simply cannot jump cogent social sciences shark. So that gives you an idea of how absolutely nonsensical some of the sources are that they've been using. They come from a postmodernist generator. They're not legit. They're not from journals that exist. They're not papers that exist. They're not written by authors that exist. And yet apparently both of the peers who reviewed this found that to be sound. That was sound citing right there. Oh, good lord. How on earth? You cannot make up how absolutely and completely ridiculous this is. So that, I think, gives you a good idea of how absolutely absurd this paper is, how ridiculous these two authors set out to make this thing. Like, they barely even tried. They basically just went straight down the, we're going to put as much nonsense in this as possible, make up as much shit, and as long as its fundamental message is, men are bad, we think that it will actually get through. And, well, apparently it did. Apparently this actually went through. So what I want to do is to go ahead and actually read the paper, the actual thing as it was accepted and published in Cogent Social Sciences. And I want to do this specifically because I want to try and don my feminist lens, as it were, and see if I can work out how exactly this went by two people without them realizing how absolutely bullshit this paper is that they've published. I'm just intrigued. I've not read this paper yet, so I've got a little half day today. I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go and read that paper and see what it's all about. And then I figured, fuck it, I'm gonna subject all of you to this. All of this to you as well. I'm gonna try and read it as convincingly as I can, but I don't know if I'm gonna be able to actually keep my face in a resting and serious manner. This paper, well, I guess I'm going to predict that this paper is going to make my face very tired. So chat, before we go anywhere, does anyone have any pearls of wisdom that they would like to offer? Get your bleach ready, shitlords and ladies. Yes, that I would agree with. Mine is ready. Absolutely delicious stuff. I have a watermelon flavored bleach today. It's another one that's going to go in the line along with teal cola. Someone's saying at this point a third grader could write an academic paper about men being bad and it would get published. That's more or less what this is. Really. That is more or less it. I think you might actually be on this. Maybe that would be another interesting thing to do, like, get, like, an actual, like, child, like a 5-year-old or something, to just write a paper about why men are bad, and then, like, fluff up the language and then submit that and see if it goes in. That would actually be a pretty funny one. Now chat is going by too fast because I've noticed you. There's too many people who want to be noticed. That's it. It's not too much. Okay, let's read the actual thing through. I'm gonna put on my feminist lens and try and take this seriously throughout, but I am genuinely curious to see what it is. Sociological research article: The Conceptual Penis as a Social Construct. As you can see, published in Cogent Social Sciences, right up over nya. And actually, one thing which really interests me about this is these two dates before we go anywhere over here. Received 17th of April 2017, accepted the 11th of May 2017. That is a ridiculously fast turnover for a paper. That's really, really quick. That's less than a month. That's very fast. It's not uncommon for journals, when you put stuff in for peer review and to go through the overall cycle, it can in some cases take months for you to go through that, because you often go through, or you should go through multiple rounds of peer review with various corrections being made at each round. You don't have to, you don't actually have to take on board those suggested corrections. Clearly these two authors who published this, when one came back with minor alterations, they did actually act on it. But even that, because clearly they went through it, because they had 16 and then upped it to 20 after that. So even then, they went through one round, resubmitted, it was peer-reviewed again, and then taken in. So that was 2 rounds. It must have been 2 rounds by definition of how how peer review works. So it must have gone round two rounds of peer review and then been accepted. Which, assuming that must be the case, assuming that cogent social sciences, when you make alterations, they don't just accept it and then go, oh, you made some changes, okay, it's fine now. Assuming that they do then put it out to peers, that means 6 people, because it would have, oh no, 5, 6, it could be either. I'm not familiar with how cogent sciences does it, but that means the editor saw it, 2 peers reviewed it, it was rewritten by the authors to put those few extra sources in, and then it would have probably gone out to another 2 peers again to review the thing, or it might have been to the same 2. Sometimes it changes, it varies article to article, publication to publication, but that's kind of scary that up to like 5 or 6 people could have read this and thought, yes, this is legit, let's go with it. And all in the space of about 3 weeks. That's crazy. That's absolutely insane. Anyway, let's get on into this. I'm going to take a mouthful of bleach and then we'll... yes, that's what I'm going to do. So, the abstract. Anatomical penises may exist, but as preoperative transgendered women also have anatomical penises, the penis vis-a-vis maleness is an incoherent construct. We argue that the conceptual penis is better understood, not as an anatomical organ, but as a social construct isomorphic to performative toxic masculinity. Holy fuck word salad. I can already see where this will have got through, because we've got this. Preoperative transgendered women also have penises. So we've scored a point on the progressive stack here. We've mentioned trans women have dicks, because, you know, you can be a woman and still have a penis, guys. It's very important that you remember that. So I can see how that's beginning to tick the progressive boxes to get this on through. Though detailed post-structuralist discursive criticism and the example of climate change, this paper will challenge the prevailing and damaging social trope that penises are best understood as the male sexual organ and reassign it a more fitting role as a type of masculine performance. Wow. Okay, so I'm going to don my feminist lens once again. So we're doing post-structuralist discursive criticism. Holy fuck word salad, that means it's got to be good, because this is how they think. As long as it's post something or other, that's pretty good. Pre or post, anything like that, as long as you put that in, that means it's good. Okay, that's legit. The example of climate change, well, we all know climate change, very progressive, got to take that on there. Okay. So they're challenging the prevailing and damaging social trope that penises are understood as that. So men having sexual organs, they're linking that back to the transgendered woman. They're linking it back to the chicks with dicks. So it's a damaging social trope that men have penises, because women can have penises too. Okay, see, they're actually being consistent here. There's a degree of consistency here. And they're going to reassign it as a role of behavior. It's a performance thing. It's not actually about your dick. The dick doesn't matter. It's about how you behave. That kind of almost sounds like a bit reminiscent of patriarchy theory and all of that stuff. So there we go. We've gone through an abstract, and with my feminist lens on, I can kind of see how someone who is really ideologically invested in feminism would read that as a legitimate thing rather than as a hoax, as a complete and utter nonsense phrase. Let's see if we can continue this. I'm feeling quite good about my feminist lens, although that might very well just be because I am, after all, a qualified anal theorist, and my feminist lens is quite firmly aligned with my anal window. Daily reminder, black anality wasn't a hoax. It was an actual legitimate peer-reviewed paper. I can't help but think... You know what's worrying? I've read the abstract of this. I'm going to read the rest of this. If this makes more sense through, even though it's written in nonsense, if through a feminist lens you can make this make sense, more sense than black anality, that's gonna be so fucking mind-blowing if that's the case. The keywords, of course, because those are always amusing: penis, feminism, machismo, braggadocio, masculinity, and climate change. Oh my. Oh my. Well, let's see if we can make this make a little bit more sense. The androcentric, scientific, and meta-scientific evidence that the penis is the male reproductive organ is considered overwhelmingly and largely controversial. It is true that nearly all male-gendered persons who were also male at birth have a genital organ that, among other purposes, carries the duct for the transfer of sperm during copulation. Oh my, yes. But you see, they're hitting the progressive things. They're doing the assigned at birth thing. So yeah, through the feminist lens, I can see someone accepting that sentence, even though the first part there is just what the fuck word salad, but okay. I think I need something other than just bleach. I think I should have brought, like, a nice light vinaigrette or maybe some mayonnaise or something for this word salad I'm about to read. This organ is usually identified as the penis, and for many males, quote males there, because chicks with dicks, remember, they're men too, it serves the role of their reproductive organ. There are, however, many examples of persons with penises who will not reproduce, including those who have sustained injury, are unable to coerce a mate. Yep, okay. I can see why a feminist would accept that. That is, yep. I can see why they would accept that. Are uninterested in producing offspring, are medically infertile, or identify as asexual. They're very progressive. Very progressive authors, well done. I can see why someone would accept this in a journal, even though it's nonsense. While these examples may still constitute males, it is distinctly fallacious to identify their penises as reproductive organs. J'accuse. Furthermore, there are many women who have penises. Of course there are. Chicks with dicks are men. That's how it is. Ignore the fact that we call them chicks with dicks. They're not chicks, they're men. That's how it works. These are specifically preoperative transgendered women and chromosomal males who choose to identify as women without indicating a desire to transition, and despite damaging cultural tropes against their womanhood and femininity, these constitute critical examples of a human demographic for whom their genital organ, while it may be utilized reproductively in some cases, is not best understood as being a male genital organ. Okay. I'm spotting the contradiction that they've got here. It's nice, it's subtle, but I like it. These things, you know, women have penises aren't things, but then it's, it is sort of used reproductively. Even in things which aren't men that are trying to be men or claiming to be men, it can still be used reproductively. And never mind the fact that, you know, like people who are XX but still have the SRY gene will often still develop a penis or something like that. They'll just be sterile, but it's still going to be utilized reproductively, or it still could be. We've got to put that in there. So it's very progressive like that. It's very important. I just want to read what they've got. Oh, that's about the authors and public statement. That's not relevant. Okay. Maybe it will be. I'll look at it at the end. In light of these important facts about the wide diversity of human expression, including, when specified, to those humans bearing a penile genital organ, conceptualizing the penis as a specific male anatomical organ is highly problematic and in critical need of discursive revision. You've got the word problematic in there, and we need to revise the social construct. Boom! Feminist postmodernism right fucking there. I can see how they would accept this. Indeed, the penis vis-a-vis maleness is an incoherent construct. We argue that the conceptual penis is better understood not as an anatomical organ, but as a gender-performative, highly fluid social construct. Good lord. Absolute word salad, but it rings so oddly correctly of the insanity of postmodernist feminism in academia. It's nonsense. But when you see it through a feminist lens, I can understand how one of those people would accept this. Remember, no revisions were recommended by one of the authors. just remember that, chat. Oh, I need more bleach. Delightful. Delightful. Let's move on over to the next part. We're going to actually talk properly now about the conceptual penis. Very important chapter. The conceptual penis is the operative representation of the penis in society as it obtains via a variety of performative acts and statements related to and concerning gender. Conceptualization is the best way to understand the penis, as the notion of, quote, penis as a male anatomical organ, end quote, suffers typically androcentric and meta-scientific limitations and errors, as it is both overly reductive in failing to represent the full reality of penis-bearing human experiences. Lived experience, right? That's all very important. It's limiting. We're going against the patriarchal science here. Because patriarchy, because remember, science is patriarchal, it's androcentric. We need to get rid of it because the crazy voodoo man really can call down lightning to kill people, and your science can't explain it. They're going right down that route. I love it. It's brilliant. And of course, we've got the reality of penis-bearing human experiences. We've got to get that lived experience point in there. It's very important. And it is also incoherent, as the penis itself has little or nothing to do with gender. Well, gender is a social construct, don't you know? Consequently, what coherent role can a monolithic concept like the penis hope either to achieve or to describe for pre-operative and non-operative male-to-female trans women and post-operative female-to-male trans men who choose to retain their identity as women? That is full-on progressive stack right there. Female-to-male transition, as in you were a woman, born a man, but you still identify as a woman. Full-on progressive stack right there. That is the head fuck of trans identities through postmodernist feminism. Again, I can see how they would accept that. Because, hey, why can't you be a female-to-male trans? Because then you're just a trans man who identifies as a woman. That's totally legit. Why the fuck not? Under feminism, everything is possible. Feminism is without limit like that. It's amazing. Likewise, what meaning can the anatomical penis as a male organ possibly hold for gender-fluid individuals or certain other individuals within the queer community? Very important. Queer community right there. I can see why this got accepted. In the paradigm of the dominant penis-centered narrative, we find these questions intrinsically unanswerable. Very important. Because remember, penis-centered narrative. Patriarchy, basically, that is an allusion to the patriarchy theory. Or as I like to call it, the patriarchy assertion. I really can see why someone didn't think this needed any sort of amendment, despite the fact that it's bullshit. It is also factually incorrect to associate the anatomical penis with male reproductivity, as noted above, and thus even with healthy male sexuality, as any expression should be deemed healthy, while many other forms of male sexuality that are normative are distinctly problematic and unhealthy. For example, men's rights advocates appropriating the legal, not voluntary but still reasonable standard for search and seizure to issues involving sexual consent. Boom! MRA's blown the fuck out. I really can see. I can see why a feminist would read this and be like, yeah, men rights, yeah, evil, literally Satan, worse than Hitler. Oh boy. So let me try and unpack that nonsense. So it's incorrect to associate the penis with reproductivity, and thus even with healthy men. So any expression should be deemed healthy, while many other forms of sexuality that are normative are problematic. Okay, so that, if I'm donning my feminist lens and trying to read through the obvious bullshit that these authors have written here, if I were to go full postmodernist feminist, that would then be saying what? Any expression of sexuality can be healthy or should be seen as healthy, except for the male sexuality that is problematic and unhealthy. So, there we go. Very, very important. That is, the conceptual penis is a performative social construct, and it is one that is isomorphic to an especially toxic strain of masculinity. So you see, the conceptual penis is toxic masculinity. It's a symptom. It is a symptom of the toxic masculinity. That's what it is. Good. I can see this. My postmodernism is intensifying. Still, even as a social construct, the conceptual penis is hopelessly dominated by recalcitrant social constructs that favour hypermasculine interpretations of the penis as a notion unjustly associated with high male values. Many cisgendered hypermasculine males, for instance, seem to identify those aspects of their masculinity upon which they most obviously depend with the notion that they carry their penis as a symbol of male power, domination, control, capability, desirability, and aggression. The National Coalition for Men compiled a list of synonyms for the word penis. These include the terms beaver basher, cranny axe, custard launcher, dagger, heat-seeking moisture missile, mayo-shooting hot dog gun, pork sword, and yogurt shotgun. That's very, very relevant there. But, going through my feminist, postmodernist fucking lens, I can see it, okay, because you've got a lot of allusions to guns and to weaponry and to violence, so they've tied that in quite nicely there with the aggression, so I like that. I like that little touch. It's very nice. Very nice. It does seem like something that a feminist would say. Based upon an appreciable corpus of feminist literature on the penis, this troubling identification results in an effective isomorphism linking the conceptual penis with toxic hypermasculinity. There we go. We're into hypermasculinity. It's not just masculinity anymore, it's hypermasculinity. God, please, we've had the trans penis. Please, let us go for the hyper penis. I want this paper to use the phrase hyper penis. That will make me so happy. That would make me so happy. Please, authors, have put the phrase hyper penis in there. Oh god. You know, I'm tempted to try and write something like this myself, to use phrases like the hyper penis. And because remember, chat, we did determine in an earlier live stream, 40 thrusts per minute or more is rape. So I'm very tempted to see if I could slip something like that into a paper. That would be funny. But let's see. Come on, bring on the hyper penis. Come on, don't let me down. Don't let me down. Machismo braggadocio. Inasmuch as masculinity is essentially performative, so too is the conceptual penis. The penis, in the words of Judith Butler, can only be understood through reference to what is barred from the signifier within the domain of the corporeal legibility. The penis should not be understood as an honest expression of the performer's intent, should it be presented in a performance of masculinity or hypermasculinity. Okay, so it shouldn't be understood as an... Okay, so if a man is expressing masculinity or hypermasculinity, it's not honest because it's related to this constructed penis, so it's not real. That's the important thing right there. Okay, so thus the isomorphism between the conceptual penis and what's referred to throughout discursive feminist literature as, quote, toxic masculinity, end quote, is one defined upon a vector of male cultural machismo braggadocio, with the conceptual penis playing the role of subject, object, and verb of action. Okay, no, donning my feminist lens, I can see it, because remember, when we looked through those papers like the dildo as a political thing, they used the term dildo both as, like, a subject, not an object, and a noun, like, repeatedly. They used dildo, like, with a capital D as, like, an umbrella term for a lot of other things, and then a dildo as, like, the object. So, yes, this fits with some of the feminist academia that I've seen before that was actually peer-reviewed and accepted and legitimate, as opposed to this paper, which is peer-reviewed and was a hoax. I'm going to constantly remind people of that throughout this stream. This was a hoax, because I know there's going to be some people joining as we're going through this, and I just want everyone to remember, this paper is a hoax, and it still got peer-reviewed, accepted, and published in a journal. So, and I'm just reading it out of curiosity to see if through my feminist lens I can understand it. The result of this trichotomy of roles is to place hypermasculine men both within and outside of competing discourses whose dynamics, as seen via post-structuralist discourse analysis, enact a systematic interplay of power in which hypermasculine men use the conceptual penis to move themselves from powerless subject positions to powerful ones. I'm struggling with my feminist lens to see that. They're both within and without and outside of competing discourses. So they don't have to be within, they can be without. Okay, no, that one I can't see through my feminist lens, but even the authors said when we read their review of this that they did intentionally say that people could be inside and outside things at the same time. So that is one of the distinct pieces of bullshit that they put in, and I can't twist that. In even using my feminist lens. My feminist lens is not strong enough. I need to level up my feminist lens. Apparently being an anal theorist it's not enough. I have to go further. I have to push deeper. Deeper than being an anal theorist. I need more. Oh my. But of course they've got systematic interplay of power. So I can sort of see this part where they talk about men using the concept of this penis as some sort of signifier of power, that they use it falsely to project power. That I can see linking to the whole machismo braggadocio thing. But the inside-outside thing, no, I can't. Even with my feminist lens on, I could not twist that into something that makes sense. Machismo is essentially aggressive male pride, whereas braggadocio is a quality of arrogant boastfulness. These together can be taken as a concrete description of the typical performative expression of maleness and hegemonic entrenched male power dynamics through the object of the penis, as the socially masculine mind conceptualizes it, and the heteronormative female mind, too, typically has been socially indoctrinated to fetishize it. Boom! Right there. I can absolutely see why some of the reviewers took that seriously, because that is men victimizing women, and women being victims of the patriarchy, being brainwashed into accepting and wanting masculine men. And holy shit, you know what I'm realizing? This is a parody paper, okay? It wasn't written in seriousness, and yet I am seeing so many parallels to actual legitimate peer-reviewed feminist papers. Like this part, talking about women who have been socially indoctrinated to fetishize it. Anyone who watches Honey Badger Radio or the times which I've been on there, we did a paper which was talking about sperm banks, and it was discussing how women could pay extra to get an extended donor profile. So you could go in, you could just be like, give me some sperm, they'd give you some sperm, and that would be it. Or you could pay the sperm bank extra money to get an extended profile, which would basically tell you things like how tall the guy was, what job he has, his income, all sorts of things like that, and a load of other physical traits about him. And the authors of that argued that that was oppressing women because women had basically been brainwashed by the patriarchy to think that those traits were in any way important or relevant. So basically, it went down the route of saying female sexuality and the fact that women have preferences in men, both physically, mentally, and social status. And we know that women prefer men of equal to or higher social status for them. It's been repeatedly demonstrated throughout numerous fields, especially in the social sciences, looking at psychology and whatnot. It's been repeatedly demonstrated that women will always trade other characteristics for resources in that. So the overall G, like the general, that is social status for men, incorporates a lot of things. It incorporates things like height, physical prowess, athleticism, income, material wealth, so on and so forth. And it's been repeatedly demonstrated that women will always trade off things like height, appearance, athleticism, muscular, things like that, in favor of more money and more stuff. And that was basically a constant theme throughout all of this. When given the choice, it was a very, very large number of women who would do that. So we know sort of what it is that gets women going, and that there are quite a lot of overall things, and that they are all within that overall rubric of social status. And then those papers talking about those sperm banks were basically saying, look, that's a lie. Women don't actually like these things. They've just been brainwashed. They've been brainwashed into thinking that. And so that sentence there just, it rings so eerily true of what feminists have actually said, actually been positing in their genuine peer-reviewed academic stuff. Crazy. Absolutely insane. Anyway, we're gonna move on with this. Through self-objectification, female mind to... No, hang on, I've skipped a line, my apologies. Through self-objectification in the conceptual penis, hypermasculinity, which abhors weakness in all forms, seeks to reposition itself from a powerless subject position to a powerful one. Often masculine behavior therefore centers upon boasting, even if falsely, about size, potency, and desirability, and many socially problematic gender demonstrative behaviors defining both toxic masculinity and rape culture emanate from the machismo-braggadocio isomorphism as a form of social staging applied to the objective conceptual penis. Oh my. Yes. These are precisely the, quote, practices that systematically form the objects of which they speak, end quote, mentioned by Foucault's first delineation of post-structuralist discursive analysis. Absolute nonsense. Crazy stuff. But again, I can see this because feminists in their postmodernist academia things do constantly like to assert that, men are, scared of losing their power, and because of the patriarchy, they've used all of these bizarre mindfuck tricks to try and convince everyone, which basically means women, that men are the ones who have all of the power when they actually don't. Oh god. But I can see why a feminist reading this would accept this and let it go through the peer review process, saying it needed no review whatsoever when this paper was written as a hoax to intentionally contain bullshit and make no sense. Nowhere more does this problematic construction compare than with the, quote, hegemonic masculinity and cultural construction, end quote, presented in the, quote, essence of the hard-on, end quote. The essence of the hard-on. That's brilliant. Oh, that's fantastic. Potts illustrates that the functioning or lack thereof of the conceptual penis, quote, demonstrates the inscription of individual male bodies of a coital imperative. The surface of the male body interfuses with culture to produce the fiction of a dysfunctional, non-penetrative male heterosexuality. The fuck? Non-penetrative male... Okay, no. Okay, no, I've got to don my feminist lens. Okay, demonstrates the inscription of individual male bodies. So, a functioning lack of a penis, even if it's conceptual, and somehow through culture it produces a non-penetrative male head, so a male who doesn't have sex but is still perceived as male. Even my feminist lens is struggling to get this into focus. Wow, okay. Let's try and move it on a little bit. This is clear power dynamical repositioning to alleviate the internal psychological structure of weakness via hypermasculinity and an essential fear of weakness that characterizes hypermasculinity itself. Okay, that makes more sense because I'm a feminist lens. We therefore further agree with Potts that, quote, by relinquishing the penis's executive position in sex, male bodies might become differently inscribed and coded for diverse pleasures beyond the phallus/penis, end quote. Okay, so you relinquish the penis's role in sex. So basically then men can have sex, can have pleasure in sex without using the penis. Okay, that, through my feminist lens, I can twist that into a thing that kind of makes sense. It's basically saying, if men weren't so focused on their dicks, they could enjoy getting fucked in the arse. Feminism in academia, or should I say, the parody of feminism in academia. But actually, they do have a little bit of an obsession with that, because I remind you, anality is actually a field of scholarship in feminist academia. I've got another paper here, which is one I'm actually working on for a video. It's the phallic effect, or why men's rights activists have feelings. I kind of did a bit of it on Honey Badger Radio, but I want to do a whole video about it. And this paper does use the field of study known as anality. And it actually... And this is a serious paper, this phallic effect paper, is a serious thing that was peer-reviewed and put out. And the author basically says that men's rights activists are scared of feminism and are in opposition to feminism because they have castration anxiety. You know, they're scared of losing their penises. And because some guy somewhere on the internet talked about men being fucked, they then say that men's rights activists basically just don't want to be fucked because it puts them against subservience, which is against what masculinity tells them to be. So basically the author concludes that men's rights activists are upset about feminism because they don't want to get fucked in the arse. Like that is in basically in far fewer words than that author says what they seriously proposed as a thing that was peer-reviewed in another journal. Which journal was that paper in, actually? I was going to quickly see. Which one was that published in? That was published in Men and Masculinities in 2016. But using my feminist lens, this hoax paper here, I'm actually scared. I'm actually scared. This paper was a hoax. To all the people who have just joined us, we've gained a few hundred extra. This paper was a hoax written by people parodying the postmodernist bullshit that we see in feminist academia, and yet they are terrifyingly close to what feminists actually have said, to things which I've covered on this channel and things which I've covered over on Honey Badger Radio, to some of the things they have seriously put forward as actual things that have been peer-reviewed and published as actual serious arguments. It's actually kind of worrying, and reading this through, because I'm attempting to apply that feminist lens to certain bits of it, I can really see why people who peer-reviewed this didn't see anything wrong with it. They were like, nope, this is absolutely fine, go ahead and publish it, totally fucking legit. Crazy stuff. Where did I get to the end of that paragraph or not? I don't think I did. Eyes, more mapping of the phallus, necessarily much changing, no. Yeah, pleasures beyond the penis and the phallus, and we insist that understanding the objective isomorphic mapping between phallus and penis is a necessary discursive element to changing the prevailing penile social paradigm. The constructed intersection of the anatomical penis and the performative conceptual penis defines the problematic relationship between masculinity masculinity presents for male bodies and their impacts upon women in our pre-post patriarchal societies. Pre-post patriarchal society. I can see why a feminist would accept that, because we're not post patriarchy yet. We are before post we are still in a time before patriarchy has been abolished. So we are pre-post patriarch. I can see with my feminist lens, I can see why one of them would accept that and say this is absolutely fine. Oh, good God. Oh, my hat's off. I have taken off all of my hats. Every single hat that I have ever worn in my life has been taken off to the authors of this paper. They fucking nailed this. Absolutely brilliant. In addition to self-objectification, the conceptual penis can, intrinsically to the machismo-braggadocio isomorphic map... Okay, I love this. The machismo-braggadocio isomorphic map, it's now a thing. It doesn't have to be established, doesn't have to be explained what it is. That doesn't matter. Fucking irrelevant. Feminism academia in a nutshell. I have seen people do that sort of shit. Seriously. So it doesn't express itself as the subject of toxic masculinity. The masculine mentality often conflates the socialized male individual as an inscribed and embodied extension of his conceptual penis. Okay, right, so the socialized male is an embodiment of the conceptual penis. That's basically, they hinge their entire identity on this conceptual masculine behavior that is the penis, apparently. Okay, so through this conflation, the hypermasculine male becomes the object to his conceptual penis and expresses himself and his core sense of identity in terms of his conceptual penis as subject. Paxton and Scammeren, there's the fake author who doesn't actually exist and yet has been cited numerous times throughout this paper, and the people who peer-reviewed it said this paper is fine and the sources are sound. They called the sources sound. This author doesn't exist. Paxton and Scammeren illustrate this phenomenon clearly in the context of our contemporary masculine biased approaches to the economic theory. They write, obviously they don't because they don't exist, but in this fictitious world, they write, the premise of neo-capitalist materialist theory implies that sexual identity has objective value. Therefore, the premise of post-capitalist sublimation implies that sexuality serves to oppress the underprivileged. Many discourses concerning a self-justifying totality may be found, end quote. Holy crap. Okay, can my feminist lens decode that word salad? I'm going to take a moment, I'm going to apply a little bit of ranch dressing to this word salad and see if I can actually chew it over into something that makes fucking sense. Okay, so we've got the neo-capitalist, so new capitalism, remember that's very important. So neo-capitalist materialism, okay, so a new capitalist materialist way of looking at things, but it's a theoretical framework, so using that theory implies that sexual identity has an objective value. Not sexuality, but that identifying sex has an objective value. Okay, therefore, the premise of post-capitalist sublimation, so going beyond that, implies that sexuality serves to oppress the underprivileged. Okay, no, that does make sense. If you go past the neo-capitalist materialist theory that doesn't fucking exist, then that would necessarily be in opposition to the idea that it has value, and that then using a theory where you're trying to dismantle this would then posit that the neo-capitalist thing, is using sexuality to oppress the underprivileged. Okay, I can kind of see it. My feminist lens can kind of twist it into something. Almost. Jesus Christ. This is the sort of nonsense that... You do get the idea that the sort of postmodernist feminists who peer-reviewed this, they read this sort of stuff, they don't understand it, but they just say, yeah, that's okay, because it sounds like something that does make sense, so they say it to sort of make sense. Oh, good lord. This, they argue, follows from Lacan's incisive observation that sexual identity is part of the economy of truth. That's a quote from Paxton and Scammeren again. The conceptual penis, taken as the subject, often has the consequence of promoting oppression of the underprivileged by the misunderstanding that male sexual identity has objective value. So, okay, so male sexuality doesn't have an objective value, but the illusion that it does means that it oppresses underprivileged people. This is very important, you see, we're scoring the progressive stack thing. We're talking about oppressing underprivileged groups. And we've mentioned the oppression of women earlier, very important. I can see why a feminist would look at this and say, yep, that's a thing. Particularly in repositioning the powerless hypermasculine male subject as powerful in and by means of his conceptual penis. This value is typically defined by the machismo-braggadocio-penile isomorphism between inscriptive object and discursive, thus prescriptive subject. Holy fucking word salad, man. Someone in chat has noticed page 3 of 7. Don't worry, there's not actually 7 pages of it. It's about 5.5. The rest of it is all citations, which, as we established earlier, 5 of which don't fucking exist, and yet they were defined as sound by the people who reviewed this. Oh, yeah. God, how is this a thing? How is this a thing? How did this get through peer review? Good lord. Actually, and while we're going through this, remember that what the authors said in this post over here, which we looked at the in the beginning? The quotes by Scammeren, not only does Scammeren not exist, but a lot of those quotes that Scammeren uses were lifted straight out of the Postmodernist Generator. Which, if we get to the end of the stream and I've still got some time to dick around with it, I might show you the Postmodernist Generator for anyone who's not seen it, and you can see the sort of nonsense that it comes out with. So when hypermasculine males see themselves as potent, dominant, controlling, or desirable, it is often an artifact of the machismo-braggadocio isomorphism acting to make the conceptual penis the subject of their performed sense of identity. Cameron and DeSelby, 2004, noted, in a sense, the subject is interpolated into the pre-cultural deappropriation that includes sexuality as a reality. This is clearly experienced via the machismo-braggadocio constructional isomorphism between the conceptual penis and pervasive toxic hypermasculine mentalities and behaviors. Fucking word salad. Jesus, this means nothing. I just love how these authors have just gone straight into constructual isomorphism, and the peers reviewed this, and at no point did they look at that and think, you really need to be defining this. It's just... Someone in chat says, pre-post hyper-ejaculate. You should write one of these papers. You put phrases like that into a paper, write it, and I guarantee you'll get fucking published. For example, this can be seen in male bragging about their sexual conquests and boasting about their sexual performance, but also in male language with speech acts like, I gave it to her, and she couldn't get enough of it. In the latter cases, the noun it turns the objective conceptual penis into the perceived subject of female experience, thus objectifying the conceptual penis vis-a-vis male gender performance. The conceptual penis thereby becomes a deappropriative tool through which the penis as subject makes the male sexuality a potent reality in the masculine mind. Oh god. My brain is going to fuck reading this. How did people read this and think, yes, this is a thing that doesn't need to be reviewed in any way at all? I give my peer review seal of approval to this. Go for it. Publish this. This is legit. Oh, God. The ultimately performative nature of hypermasculinity via the machismo-braggadocio isomorphism is most evident in male behaviors, typically of many men to reject emotional expression as feminine. For example, compassion is generally avoided under machismo-braggadocio, subject to performance, as are emotional expressions other than dominant aggressive ones like anger and irascibility. There we go, this is very important. I can see again why a feminist reviewing this paper would accept it, because men can only experience anger and irritability and negative things like that. It's actually kind of a thing which, again, harks back to this phallic effect paper which I'm reading, where someone actually does advance that as a serious thing about men's rights activists. They say the only reason they feel this is because they're angry, because that's the only thing they're allowed to feel, because patriarchy. As Chef points out, the hypermasculine pattern leads to competition rather than connection between persons. The performative nature of male-on-male competition. Oh, yes, male-on-male competitions. Get a little bit of that in there. Rather than connection between persons. The performative nature of male-on-male competition is reflected in the conceptual penis via the machismo-braggadocio isomorphism, not only through the behavior, but additionally in phrases regarding toxic masculine competitiveness, like pissing contest, in which winners are determined by which hypermasculine person is able to project a stream of urine the furthest, often from a height, and dick measuring contest, which needs no elaboration to unveil the direct impact of performative machismo-braggadocio competitiveness. Oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah, it's phrases like pissing contest and dick measuring contest is usually usually used to show that something is like a pointless competition. You know, it's not a competition that needs to be happening. It's completely pointless and ridiculous. But this article is kind of like phrasing it as if those things are actual serious competitions that that men go through at some point in their lives. And a feminist read this. 2 of them read this and said, "No, this is serious. It's actually a thing." Oh, someone wants me to read that with a straight face. Okay, can I do it? Okay, no, I've got to do the... It's so fucking stupid. Additionally, in phrases regarding toxic, hypermasculine competitiveness, like pissing contest, in which winners are determined by which hypermasculine person is able to project a stream of urine the furthest, often from a height, and dick measuring contest, which needs no elaboration to unveil the direct impact of performative machismo-braggadocio competitiveness. Oh god. Oh, this... Someone saying, am I sure this is not a comedy? No, this is a comedy. This was a hoax paper. This is not a real paper. It was something which 2 people wrote intentionally as a hoax to see if it would get peer-reviewed and published, and it did get peer-reviewed and published. So, just go with it. It's not legit, but 3 people, the editor at a journal, and 2 peers reviewed this paper and said, yes, this is a legitimate paper, publish it. Just remind that. Remind that. We see further linguistic evidence for this phenomenon as hypermasculine men often use the word dick, casual slang for the penis, as an actionable verb. To dick someone might mean to take advantage of them or to have sex with them, depending upon the constructual context of the application. The inherent connotations of dicking and dicking over to rape culture are, here, obvious, but run too far afield of our purposes to develop independently. Yes, because remember, when you give a girl a good dicking, it's not because she wanted it, it's because you're a rapist. You are perpetuating the rape culture. It's very important. Hypermasculine tropes often take advantage of the penis as verb surjection to express themes of male power and dominant male sexuality, and confer the frequent use of the sexual objectifying hypermasculine phrase, "I dicked her good." Yes! They got the phrase "I dicked her good" into an academic paper, and this was taken seriously! Oh, please, authors, don't let me down. Talk about the hyper penis, please. I want the hyper penis in this paper. It will make me so happy if this is in there. The phrase "I dicked her good," this feminist academia that someone took seriously. Allowing hypermasculine males to intuit the interplay of various discourses behind their subject positions and to shift them accordingly within specific settings, especially imagined and real sexual encounters with real and virtual women. Ooh. Because men draw a lot of sense of masculinity from giving a good dicking to those 2D waifus. Remember, 2D waifus do not make you any less of a man because toxic masculinity. It's not that having a 2D waifu is in any way seen as not really being a good thing. Okay, this they also conflate with expressing power dynamics over other men, as exemplified in the phrase "I dicked him over," which presents iconic male hegemonic thinking. Again, that was actually something which was put forward kind of seriously in this phallic effect paper, which is actually a genuine paper. I'm referencing it a lot here. I will get round to making a video on it at some point. But they actually, in that paper, the author, who was the author of that, Jonathan A. Allen, actually puts forward seriously the idea that men's rights activists, or because some guy, one person, literally one person somewhere on the internet said, men are fucked, and then that guy, Jonathan Allen, then actually writes his entire paper about how MRAs are just angry because they don't want to get fucked in the arse because that would make them look powerless. Like, that's actually as a serious thing. And in a parody paper here, we've got this idea as, oh, power dynamics over men is exemplified by the phrase of dicking someone over. Again, it's worryingly close to actually how feminist academics write. This tendency is easily explained by extrapolation upon McEwen, who demonstrates clearly that, quote, sexual identity is fundamentally used in the service of hierarchy. However, according to Worthen, it is not so much sexual identity that is fundamentally used in the service of hierarchy, but rather the dialect, and hence the defining characteristic of sexual identity. The subject is contextualized into a subculture deinstitution. I cannot say that. I cannot say that. I'm far too tongue-tied at this point, which I've had too much word salad that includes sexuality as a reality. It is by using the conceptual penis as an actionable verb that hypermasculine men enforce the social hierarchies that oppresses and deinstitutionalizes others to the perceptual elevation of themselves. It is illustrated clearly by Kuberin and Weitzer in their analysis of misogyny in rap music, in which they observe content analysis identified 5 gender-related themes in this body of music. Themes that contain messages regarding essential male and female characteristics, and that espouse a set of conduct norms for men and women, end quote. Oh god, apparently eating too much word salad makes your tongue go numb. I have to have some bleach for this. Someone says in the paper, Mikaru Media. Hello, Mikaru. How you doing? As this is a scholarly paper, shouldn't they be focusing... Chat, stop moving. God damn it. As this is a scholarly paper, shouldn't the focus be not only on dicking, but on deep dickings? Yes, Mikaru, I agree entirely. They have not focused... First of all, they haven't focused on the speed of the dicking, because remember, on previous live streams, the chat and I, we have concluded more than 40 thrusts per minute is considered rape, so they have not concerned themselves with the speed of the dicking, but you, sir, are quite correct. They have not taken into account the deepness of the dicking. And the deepness of the dicking is very, very important, because how are you going to know if it's rape or not? Surely there must be a threshold of depth at which point it becomes the rape. Maybe something to do with, puncturing the cervix, because that's very, very rapey there, very important. So I'm saying the deep throat dicking. Yes, the deep throat dicking. Critical dicking. Yes, these are all fantastic academic terms that I'm sure will make its way into feminism in academia at some point. Oh god. Where did we get to? I've completely lost my place. God damn it, chat. God damn it. Observe content, 5 gender roles, doop-de-doop-de-doop. There it is. It is also observable in the hyper-male performative behavioral trope of manspreading. Here we go. That is, inconsiderately spreading your legs too wide in public, for example, on public transport, such as planes, trains, and automobiles! Oh, okay. For anyone who's not British, you might not get that. I don't know if the authors to this are British or not, but planes, trains, and automobiles, it's kind of a little bit of a colloquialism as well, but it was also the names of a series done by, I believe it was either Jeremy Clarkson or James May. It was one of the two who did that. It was like a series of books. And I think they also did there was a book and I think also a TV show about it as well. So I find that phrase existing there, planes, trains, automobiles, amuses me a little bit more just for that reason. I don't know whether it's just a common thing, but that's what it makes me think of. So especially subways and buses. The usual excuse given for manspreading is centered directly on the conceptual penis as a male social discourse. The anatomical penis and testicles are attributed as needing space in order to facilitate the male individual's comfort. This behavior, seen from the perspective of the conceptual penis as a performative social construct, is clearly a dominating occupation of physical space, akin to raping the empty space around him. that is best understood via the machismo-braggadocio isomorphism to toxic masculinity. Welcome to the Poe. This is the Poe of what we've got here. But manspreading is raping the space around men. I can see why the feminists would have this. Apparently Planes, Trains and Automobiles is also a movie. Excellent. I haven't seen that film, but it's nice to know. Nice to know. So, this paper is doing my head in, but it's so funny. It is so funny that these things, that this got peer-reviewed and published when it was written to not make any sense. I mean, I am trying so very, very hard to put my feminist lens on and read this and twist it into something that makes sense. You kind of can, as I've said, because it does harken back to a lot of other actual legit feminist papers that I've written, that I've seen, that I've read. Let's see what we've got else here. Machismo is the hypermasculine essence and braggadocio is the hypermasculine expression. The penis as a conceptual element of contemporary thought is naturally isomorphic by notion of machismo braggadocio to the most toxic and problematic themes in hypermasculinity. It is important to be clear that none of these themes are applicable to the anatomical penis, as they are incoherent to many gender identifications that happen to present a penis as a genital organ. Remember, chicks with dicks, they might not necessarily be, they're not going to be hypermasculine like this. They are not subject to machismo and braggadocio. It's very important that you get that chicks with dicks reference in there. Very, very important. Similarly, none of these themes are applicable to the reproductive penis, as they fail to possess relevance for non-reproductive or asexual individuals with a genital penis. The penis in the present context is thus best understood as a constructed social object, a discursive conceptual penis, utilized for the enactment of prevailing masculine social tropes, and that concept is isomorphic via machismo braggadocio with many of the most problematic themes in toxic masculinity. Yeah, so basically, I can see why an academic feminist would read this and think, yes, this is a legit thing, because it's basically just saying that toxic masculinity is like one giant dick measuring contest. Oh, that's... Daily reminder, minutely reminder, hourly reminder, chat. This is a hoax paper. It was written by two people intentionally to make sure that this thing made absolutely no sense. It went to a journal, an editor reviewed it and said, yes, I will send this to peers. Two peers reviewed this and said, yes, we will publish it. And it got published! Oh, God. Okay, now this is where things get real. This is where shit hits the fan. It's like the last couple of pages where we're done with the hypermasculine and yet strangely feminine penis. We are now going to talk about climate change in the conceptual penis, wherein the penis is responsible for global warming. Let's get in there. Nowhere are the consequences of hypermasculine machismo braggadocio isomorphic identification with the conceptual penis more problematic than concerning the issue of climate change. Climate change is driven by nothing more than it is by certain damaging themes in hypermasculinity that can be best understood via the dominant rapacious approach to climate ecology identifiable with the conceptual penis. So men are raping the world. They are literally raping the world. That's where we're going with this. Let's do it. It's very important, very academic, very robust. Our planet is rapidly approaching the much warned about 2 degrees centigrade climate change threshold, and due to patriarchal power structures that maintain present capitalist structures, especially with regard to the fossil fuel industry, the connection between hypermasculine dominance of scientific, political, and economic discourses and the irreparable damage to our ecosystem is made clear. Apparently, somehow, kind of, maybe. But again, I can see why an academic feminist would go with this, because capitalism is bad. Capitalism makes people buy fossil fuels. Never mind that socialist systems use fossil fuels. Anarchist systems use fossil fuels. All of these systems would use fossil fuels, but capitalism bad. Feminism no like. And so I can see why a feminist would go alongside this. Destructive, unsustainable, hegemonically male approaches to pressing environmental policy and action are the predictable results of a raping of nature by a male-dominated mindset. This mindset is best captured by recognizing the role of the conceptual penis holds over masculine psychology. When it is applied to our natural environment, especially virgin environments that can be cheaply despoiled for their material resources and left dilapidated and diminished when our patriarchal approaches to economic gain have stolen their inherent worth, the extrapolation of the rape culture inherent in the conceptual penis becomes clear. At best, climate change is genuinely an example of hyper-patriarchal social society metaphorically man-spreading into the global ecosystem. Oh dear. Okay, can my feminist lens decipher the nonsense? Obviously, we're talking clearly about the virgin environment, and men only want virgins. Men want to rape virgins because toxic masculinity and all of that, and that's what we're doing to nature. We will man-spread into nature. Oh, good lord. The deep reason... deep reason? Are we about to talk about deep dicking? Pay attention, Micro, this could be your thing. We could be going into the deep dicking of nature. We're about to give the environment a good, hard, deep dicking. The deep reason for this problematic trend is explained, in its essence, by McLuhan, when he writes, Pickett suggests that we have to choose between capitalist rationalism and cultural sub-capitalist theory. Contemporary capitalist theory, aka neo-capitalist theory, derives its claim on rationalism directly from the hypermasculine focus in science and society that can best be accounted for by identification with the conceptual penis. Here we go. Science is a masculine patriarchal construct because it can't tell us how the shaman is able to summon lightning to kill people. Because your white capitalist patriarchal science is just wrong. Paxton and Scammeren, again this Scammeren, I'm going to remind you, Scammeren doesn't exist. His papers don't exist. He's not a real person. And yet the citations for this paper were called sound by the two people who reviewed it. Paxton and Scammeren seem to agree, noting that, quote, neo-capitalist materialist theory holds that reality comes from the collective unconscious, but only if the premise of dialective objectionalism is invalid. If that is not the case, sexuality has significance, end quote. The fuck? That's another one of those quotes. Remember, the authors wrote in their blog post about this that Scammeren, all of the quotes from Scammeren came out of the Postmodernist Generator. That quote there, that's Postmodernist Generator right there. Means nothing. And yet someone looked at it and thought, yep, that sounds legit. That sounds like a real thing. We will peer review this and publish it because that sentence makes sense. Oh, good lord. It really is SoCal all over again. So I just made up a load of shit and put it into the paper, and a bunch of people just say, yes, this is a legitimate thing because they're too stupid to admit that what they've just read is nonsense. They read it and think that sounds smart, and so they go with it. Toxic hypermasculinity derives its significance directly from the conceptual penis and applies itself to supporting neo-capitalist materialism, which is a fundamental driver of climate change, especially in the rampant use of carbon-emitting fossil fuel technologies and careless domination of virgin natural environments. We need not delve deeply into criticisms of dialectic objectionalism or their relationship with masculine tropes like the conceptual penis to make effective criticism of exclusionary dialectic objectionalism. Objectivism. All perspectives matter. Holy fucking word salad. Okay, can my feminist lens decipher the nonsense which was intentionally written to be nonsense in a way that makes sense? Okay, so, capitalism bad because capitalism drives industry. I mean, never mind the industry kind of more drives capitalism, but okay, they're two things that drive things that cause climate change, like deforestation, necessary things like that. Oh, okay. Again, systems which are not capitalist would still do that, but doesn't matter. We're trying to appeal to the feminists, and so, feminism bad, feminism, capitalism, worst thing ever, socialism, communist Marxism, it's the only way. One practical recommendation that follows from this analysis is that climate change research would be better served by a change in how we engage in the discourses of politics and science, avoiding the hypermasculine, penis-centric take whenever possible. Oh, good lord. It's okay, chat, we're at the conclusion. There's only, look, there's 2 paragraphs to go, and then this shit show is at an end. We conclude that penises are not best understood as the male sexual organ, or as a male reproductive organ, but instead as enacted social construct that is both damaging and problematic for society and future generations. The conceptual penis presents significant problems for gender identity and reproductive identity within social and family dynamics, is exclusionary to disenfranchised communities based upon gender or reproductive identity, is an enduring source of abuse for women and other gender marginalized groups and individuals, is the universal performative source of rape, and is the conceptual driver behind much of climate change. Jesus Christ, the grammar of that sentence was awful! And yet this got peer-reviewed and put in. But there we go, dicks. Dicks are the conceptual driver behind climate change. Because of course it is. Final paragraph, chat. Final paragraph, let's do it. An explicit isomorphic relationship exists between the conceptual penis and the most problematic themes in toxic masculinity, and that relationship is mediated by the machismo-braggadocio aspect of male hypermasculine thought and performance. A change in our discourses in science, technology, policy, economics, society, and various communities is needed to protect marginalized groups, promote the advancement of women, trans, and genderqueer individuals, including non-gendered and gender-skeptical people. It's going to be a new part of the Skepticism Plus community that's going to happen next year. Gender-skeptical people. And to remedy environmental impacts that follow from climate change, driven by capitalist and neo-capitalist over-reliance on hypermasculine themes and exploitative utilization of fossil fuels. Fucking hell. All of my hats, every single one of my hats, doffed to the authors of this absolute nonsense. They set out to write a paper which was completely incoherent and made absolutely no sense. And I think they succeeded. I really do think that they did succeed, except what I will say is, by my feminist lens, Now, what I'm trying to keep in mind here is that maybe the two authors who did this, I know that they are both science people, but that maybe they haven't actually read a huge amount of feminist postmodernist stuff, or maybe they have, and that's why they decided to parody it with this paper, but they might not have read the very specific ones which I have, which are allowing me to see a shocking amount of similarity between what they've written here and what some of these postmodernist feminists have actually seriously advanced in academia. So it's really interesting, actually, that a complete and utter Poe, that is why this is a Poe. It really is. It's because it has reached a point where the parody is so difficult to distinguish from the reality. And I really think that you can see that with this paper. As I've pointed out, in this paper, there are several links to actual legit feminist papers which were peer-reviewed and published. Like actual legitimate ones which weren't put in as pranks. And you know what scares me most about this? Even though this journal over Nya, even though Cogent Social Sciences, who took this paper, peer-reviewed it and published it, even though they have withdrawn it with this letter here saying, yep, we found out it was a hoax, and we're doing all of these internal reviews and all of that sort of stuff, I've got to wonder, will this paper still be cited by a feminist somewhere? Will it still be put up as an example and used as a serious citation? And I really do believe that this will. I don't think this is the last that we have heard of the conceptual penis as a social construct. I really do think that we might be seeing at some point in the future this paper being cited by someone who hasn't got the message that it was a hoax. This is the SoCal affair of 2017. And the two authors, was it Peter I'm going to butcher that name, Bohosian and James Lindsay here. Both of these people, aka Peter Boyle and Jamie Linsdale. You guys did it. Well done. Just a moment. Round of applause. And I think everyone in the chat really should press F to pay your respects to these two authors, because they nailed it. They fucking nailed it with this paper. As I said, the Poe is so good that, I mean, I am by no stretch of the imagination the most familiar person in the world with the post-modernist feminist craziness in academia, but I've read enough of them on my channel, and I've read enough of them with the likes of Honey Badger Radio to see this sort of stuff, and it's scary. It is scary how some of their bullshit that they've written in this paper intentionally actually mirrors so much of feminism in actual academia. It's kind of scary, but well done, guys. You nailed it. I dip my hat to thee, and chat. Look, chat is giving you... You guys will probably never see the stream, but chat is giving you all of the Fs. All the respect is being paid to you. Good show, fellas. Good show. So, I just wanted to do that. I wanted to see just what was actually written in that paper, and it's actually a little bit scary how alike to true feminist academia that is. Absolutely terrifying. So, well done. Well done to those authors. Thank you for joining me today, chat. That was painful to read through. Knowing that it was a joke did make it a little bit better, but god damn, so much stuff I've seen that has been genuinely advanced along those lines. Terrifying. Terrifying stuff. But, okay, what I am going to say quickly before I go is that this paper, one thing, first of all, I think the fact that it slipped past peer review is in some way indicative of the problems of the insanity of postmodern feminist nonsense in academia. But I also think that it's slightly also indicative of predatory publishing in the social sciences, or actually in all sciences in general, but it's generally in the social sciences you find it a lot more rampant. And predatory publishing is usually goes hand in hand with pay to publish stuff. So those are journals where you pay them a not small sum of money, and it's usually into the thousands, generally like 1,000 or more, to get them to peer review and publish your work. And by my understanding, that paper was in one of those journals. That is one of the things. Now, I believe, actually, in the thing, the authors, yeah, I'm just going to quickly check the notes that the authors put. The notes that they've got on the bottom of their review of this is that Portland State University, the university that they are at, has a fund dedicated to paying fees for open access journals, and this particular journal qualified for disbursement. For ethical reasons, however, we did not apply for funding, which in this case was virtually guaranteed. Instead, the article was externally funded by an independent party. We never received an invoice from the journal. We did not pay to have this published. So, while I do think that this is still indicative partially of sort of the predatory nature of certain journals, some people seem to be hiding behind the, it was like a pay to publish thing. According to the people who wrote this, no, they did not pay to get this published. So therefore, I can only conclude that this paper was published in this journal because of basically its message, how it was unabashedly anti-male in its approach, and that is therefore the thing which basically made sure that it got published. Pretty crazy stuff. Someone would like to see the Postmodernist Generator. I'll quickly show you that then. The Postmodernist Generator is basically exactly what it sounds like. It's a website. It's elsewhere.org/journal/POMO, and you just go there and it will present you a paper each time. So I've just gone to that address, and you can see here just Socialism in the Works of Gibson, Ludwig Brand, whatever, Department of Literature, University of Illinois. Part 1, Spelling and Socialism. The primary theme of Pickett's analysis. You remember Pickett? That was a name which came up in the paper we just read, possibly because it was one of the people who was lifted straight out the Postmodernist Generator. The primary theme of Pickett's analysis of sub-deconstructive Marxism is not deconstructive, as Foucault would have it, but pre-deconstructionalist. It could be said that if socialism holds, we have to choose between textual theory and subcultural capitalism. In The Name of the Rose, Eco deconstructs semiotistic discourse. In Foucault's Pendulism, he examines socialism. That's just one paragraph from this Postmodernist Generator. You can even see some of the same names and same words which you've just seen in this paper over here, this penis as a social construct one. You can see some of the same wording, and you can see how these two authors here have just lifted stuff straight out of this. And if you just F5 this page, just refresh it. Now we've got the paradigm of reality, the dialectic paradigm of discourse in this, from another person, Department of Peace Studies from Oxford University. Sure, why the fuck not? Eco and submaterialist semantic theory. Quote, sexual identity is fundamentally meaningless, end quote, says Leotard. However, according to Pickett, again, another person who's clearly written something about sexuality, because his stuff is coming up again and again and again, and he was referenced in the parody that we've just seen, it is not so much sexual identity that is fundamentally meaningless, but rather the defining characteristic and thus the absurdity of sexual identity. Derrida's critique of the pre-capitalist paradigm of context holds that the establishment is capable of truth. In a sense, any number of theories concerning dialectic dematerialism may be revealed. Are you getting the idea yet? This is just, it's absolute babble. And yet, it just comes up and it sounds, because of its postmodernist approach, it just sounds like it's a legitimate thing. So you can see what these people have done. These two authors, they've basically gone into the postmodernist generator, printed out 5 papers, and actually, as they admitted themselves in their in this thing here where they actually talk about it, I'll leave a link to this little blog post of theirs at the end, but in this thing where they talk about the hoax, they actually said they went to this thing, the postmodernist generator, and they basically printed out 5 papers, which they then reference in the citations down here. So remember, what was it? It was Scammer and someone else. I think Pickett was the other one, because Pickett is one of those people who shows up constantly, as you can see in this postmodernist generator. So these are papers that don't actually exist. Actually, hang on, Gibson. We just got a paper published by Gibson from the postmodernist generator. So you can see Pickett here, A. This is the person that they wrote about in this. You can see Pickett A. We just got a paper written by Gibson, Capitalist Rationalization of Gibson, written by Pickett. So 2 of those papers, those 2, And/or Press and Capitalism Rationalization in the Works of Gibson, that is a paper which was generated by the postmodernist generator that these people have cited in this paper. And remember, the peer reviewers who went through this, they remember what they said? It was sound was what they called it. Remember, they in response, the reviewers noted their reference was sound. See, S.Q. Cameron, invented names. These are the things which they pulled out of the postmodernist generator. That was the word used by the peers who reviewed it for these things. So you've got not only Pickett there, but also S.Q. Cameron, who is around and about here somewhere, who they are papers from the postmodernist generator. The people who peer-reviewed this paper referred to their sources as being sound. So not only basically did these people sneak 1 paper from the postmodernist generator past peer review of this journal, they basically got 6 papers passed, because there were 5 generated from the postmodernist thing which they used as sources, and then the paper itself. Basically, they got 6 papers generated from the postmodernist generator through peer review. That's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying if you think about it. But anyway, I am done reading this chat. It was hilarious, and I am glad that I accidentally censored you, chat. I'm sorry. When did that happen? I feel bad. I blocked the chat. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Please forgive me, chat. I didn't mean to. It was an accident. It was an accident, chat. But that gives you an idea of the insanity that has gone through here. 6 papers basically went through peer review at this journal. Absolutely just terrifying. Terrifying. So I'm done, chat, and you're done, and this is done. It's just fuck it. Fuck it. Everything's done. I'm done streaming. Do I want to give you a little bit of bonus content, or shall I just leave it? Yeah. I think actually we have to celebrate the glorious failure. We have to celebrate the glorious failure of peer review. I'm going to give you a little bit of music, chat, to play you out, just for funsies. Remember, in the glory of everything, praise Keck and all of that, have a new wave version of Shadowlay to play you out. Hopefully OBS will pick this up. I didn't set it up for browser audio, but we'll see if it gets it. Goodbye, chat, and we'll see you all in a monthly live stream in a few days. No, it doesn't want to pick it up, so I'm going to have to... Hang on, no, I can fix this, I believe. I believe I can fix this. Okay, maybe this will work now, and you can have a song. There you go. Enjoy.